Delay. We are back now live.
Okay, we're back live on Facebook and we're recording on Skype. After recording on Skype, we're going to upload it on YouTube so you can still watch the interviews on YouTube. I'm talking to Elliot Pfebve, the author of Zimbabwe, My Home, My Frustration. He's a chartered IT professional, holds an MBA, MSc, and PGCE. Also holds an EDP in Management and Leadership and a postgraduate in Sustainable Development. I think you wrote a book as well on sustainable development with climate change
and food security.
Yes, I think we have to talk about that one in later videos. Then, okay, so we were talking about, I think part of this introduction has already been done, but maybe we can quickly run through. So what we're doing today is we're looking at chapter 2 of this book, Zimbabwe, My Home, My Frustration, Articles of Defiance. And in chapter 2, you talk about growing up in an African context. You talk about having a competitive childhood. The whole theme of the book is Articles of Defiance. And I see a lot of defiance in chapter 2. So you talk about the competitiveness of your childhood as a boxer, boxing with other boys, playing football, emulating Muhammad Ali and George Sariah and Pele, but not really understanding who these people are at the time. You talk about not being allowed to herd cattle by your father, but that you actually wanted to go and join the big boys to herd the cattle. You talk about a rainy day when you got lost and ended up in another country, neighboring country to Zimbabwe. You talk about the keeps. The keeps were like areas where people in rural areas were kept during the war to protect them from the war, actually. Then you talk about going to school, having to make sure you can touch your ears this way.
Yes.
Okay. If you can't touch your ears, then you could not. And I suffered the same predicament. I could not go to school early enough. As early as my kids are going now to school, they are going much earlier than I did. And then you talk about having to be in the same class after the war. As a primary school kid, you have to be in the same school with 14-year-olds up to 35-year-olds. And then you become president of the school magazine when you move to high school in Harare, away from the rural areas this time. You talk about the racial discrimination in Group A schools. I went to a Group A school. We could sort of experience some of that. And then you become student rep for Heal the Hoons campaign, a civic group which was fighting against apartheid in South Africa. You also talk about the 91 to 92 drought. Hello, Elliot? Are you still there? He's gone again. Elliot is gone again. I don't know why we ended this time, but I think he's going to try and call me again. So there might be a little interruption in the Facebook live feed. I'll just wait for his call. I'm sure he's going to call just now. He talks about the 91 to 92 drought, in which he becomes aware of the need for better management in terms of food distribution. And then he also talks about his involvement in politics from a young age. But he has disappeared again. So we need to wait. This is the second time this happens. Perhaps some drones have been sent to disrupt his internet. So we wait and see. Hopefully we can carry on again. So let me try to call him actually. Let me try to call him on Skype. Hello, Ibrahim Musa, compadre, ¿cómo estás? Mr. Bernard, how are you? Yes, Elliot, you disappeared again.
No, do you know what?
Yeah.
We are now off air because there was a sound coming from the from the computer.
I think
somehow, I don't know what, there was a sound coming from there.
yeah.
And you had frozen.
But me, I'm still okay. You seem to be the one who has frozen.
But now I'm on tablet.
Okay, do you think the Russians who hacked the American election are doing the same to us?
Yeah, I think of late I've detected something suspicious.
Suspicious activities. Anyway, where did
and,
you end? What was the last thing you...
I'm rebooting it. My apologies.
Okay.
We might have to... Let's see what we can do.
Should we call it... should we try it again in a little while? Son of Marvin, how are you?
See. And there were so many already, so many on my one.
And I'm still live on Facebook, and it's the second time, but I can stop and then we start again once you're ready. So you're rebooting the laptop.
Yeah, I think let's start again, yeah.
Okay, let me stop my Facebook Live. Facebook family, I'll be back in about 5-10 minutes. Kuziva Dave, ndodzoka manje. Trukutara nezvebhuku Elliot Pfebve. I think I can stay on my just be aware that I'm live on Facebook. So whatever you're saying there is non-zwika. Mr. Mandizvidza, we're talking about this book by Elliot Pfebve. It's called Zimbabwe, My Home, My Frustration, Articles of Defiance. I just feel that there's a lack of documenting. Some of these authors are still alive. So why don't we talk to them now when they are still alive, and then we get information from them regarding the situation in Zimbabwe, how they grew up. We've got so many people now who have not released any books. Maybe we could have had more books to read about our own history. You see, we're not telling our own stories. So my mission is to help to tell our own stories. Like in this case, we've got an author and we can access him with new technologies. And we've got Facebook Live. We can use Facebook Live to interact with the viewers. Maybe people will get to know about this book. It's on Amazon. We're not trying to sell you the book. We're not saying go and buy this book tomorrow. We're saying there is a book called Zimbabwe, My Home, My Frustration. We're going to talk about it. We're documenting. If you're interested, it might arouse your interest in the book. If you become interested in the book, you can buy the book. That's the whole point. Or you can listen to the YouTube videos. We're going to be recording this on Skype. So once it's recorded on Skype, we can upload it to YouTube. And I'm going to use this software that I have called ScreenFlow to make it ready for YouTube, so that you can view it. Once it's on YouTube, it's there, it's searchable, which means you can search it. If you just search, for example, there's one I've posted, you just search Zimbabwe, My Home, My Frustration, it's going to come up. And when it does come up, then you can watch the videos. Thank you, Samuel. And then, so Samuel, you've just joined. We're talking about Zimbabwe, My Home, My Frustration. Elliot Pfebve has written this book. He has just experienced a few technical problems. We are sorting that out as soon as his end is done. So what we've been doing is trying to record this on Skype. But at the same time, we are live on Facebook. He's live on Facebook at his house. I'm live on Facebook at my place. But I'm recording the Skype on my computer. I'll just show you my computer. And there is Elliot. He's still sorting out. Can you wave, Elliot? Can you wave? So they can see that you're busy? Right. If you wave too fast, then it becomes a blur. You need to do it slowly. Otherwise, it becomes blur. Okay.
Right.
So
Can they see me?
yeah. So Elliot will be ready as soon as he's ready. Then I'm going to continue the interview. I think the sound is okay on my side, and you're able to hear him clearly. Okay. So any questions, please put them down there. Right. I'll
In about a minute, I'll be ready.
Okay. Are you rebooting the laptop?
I'm launching the application, the Skype now.
Okay, it's launching now. So you're on Skype on the tablet?
At the moment, Skype tablet. Now I'm transferring it now to
the laptop.
I'm going to cut you from tablet.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then cut you from the other side.
That's okay.
Okay.
Okay, 2 seconds. Okay. Elliot is back. Hello, Elliot Pfebve.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Dereck.
Good evening, Elliot Pfebve. So, what?
We are live now. The system is back. Technology.
Yeah, so just apologize to the viewers on Facebook that we are back. There was a technical glitch. It happens. These things are man-made. So such things are going to happen. And if you are going to record anything yourself, you're likely to at some point encounter such a difficulty. Do you want to talk to your... Are you live on Facebook now?
Yes, I'm live, and I want to apologize to my viewers for the technical fault, but we are back and live. We hope this time around to be able to complete the mission, the chapter 2, with no technical hitches. Thank you for your patience. Yeah.
So basically what we are doing is we've tried to do something that we haven't done before. So what we're doing is we're both live on our Facebook profiles from our respective homes, but at the same time we are recording this Skype interview. There's an application called Call Recorder, which records a Skype interview or a Skype call. So after we record it, we can save it on our computers and then we can upload it to YouTube. Now, I want to find out where we were. Or maybe I should start again. Chapter 2, it's a quick rundown, 12 points that I'd like you to address. Or you choose what you want to address because it's your book, and ultimately to sell the book, you can't,
I think we
everything.
Can, you'd actually summarize the book.
Yeah.
And I can actually sort of put the flesh to the skeleton now.
Do you think this last time did I finish everything? Or should I quickly go through it? I finished, so I can use the but for the benefit of those who are joining.
Indeed, yeah.
Do you think because it takes me less than a minute to do that?
It's fine. You can summarize.
Okay, so this is chapter 2 of Zimbabwe, My Home, My Frustration, a book written by Elliot Pfebve. In chapter 2, we've done chapter 1. I'm going to put chapter 1, the link to the video for chapter 1. I'm going to put it in the show notes for the YouTube when I upload it to YouTube. So this is now chapter 2, which we're looking at. And in chapter 2, he talks about, or you, Elliot, talk about growing up in an African context The first thing that you talk about is competitive childhood. This whole book is based on articles of defiance, and I see a lot of defiance in actually in this chapter. I see a lot of that defiance from an early childhood up to early adulthood. Okay, so you talk about a competitive childhood. You talk about getting involved in boxing, in football. You talk about George Shire and Pele and Muhammad Ali, but you also mentioned that at that time you didn't really know these people, but everyone was talking about them. Okay, then you talk about not being allowed to go and head cattle with the big boys because your father wanted you to focus on your education at a young age. You talk about the rainy day you got lost and ended up in a neighboring country to Zimbabwe as a very young kid of about 5, but eventually you found your way home. You talk about the Kips, which were these places where people were kept during the war to protect them from the war situation. And you talk about the war itself and how you went to school during the war and after the war, and that to go to school you had to learn to touch your ear like this. If you could not touch your ear like this, Deb Simba, hello Ronald, it meant that you could not go to school. And then you also went to school. In primary school, you're learning with people who are 14 to 35. You became president of the school magazine when you moved to Harare, and you're going to a Group A school, which is when you began to see racial discrimination because we still had some of the members of staff and some of the students were white, and you could see there was racial discrimination being practiced there. Right, and then there was you became student rep for Heal the Hoons campaign, a civic group which was looking at issues of apartheid in South Africa. Yes. And your first encounter with the political issues in Zimbabwe was you experienced them during the 1991 to 1992 drought, during which time you began to see that things could have been done differently because people were struggling. And then you talk about your brief stint with ZANU Ndonga and eventually your full-fledged political career with the MDC.
Indeed, yes.
Right, so this is the summary. You decide what you want to talk about. It's your book. It's your chance for people to understand the thought process which went into writing the book, the defiant mood that you were in from a young age, and your decision to enter into politics even when you still didn't really understand what politics was. So over to you.
Yes. I think if you look at the title of the book, Zimbabwe, My Home, My Frustration, and then Articles of Defiance, it actually sort of summarizes what I think Zimbabwe should be and what Zimbabwe should have attained after independence. And it also is sort of, it's a package of memoirs of an African child growing up in war zones, growing up under racial discrimination, growing up under this euphoria of independence, which never materialized, and also the tribulations that actually came in through me joining politics at a young age. Firstly, with ZANU Ndonga and then with MDC. But let me say that the first chapter, I know we covered the first chapter a couple of months back, was to set the scene of the book, so that I was mindful of the fact that some people who are going to lay their hands on the book might not even know where Zimbabwe is.
Yeah.
And they might not even know the composition of the people of Zimbabwe. So in such a way that I structured it to give the setting of the book, describe where Zimbabwe geographically is, the people of Zimbabwe in terms of the main languages of Zimbabwe, and main political parties, the historical background, going back to 1890 up to 2011. So it's a package of a lot of years of ups and downs in terms of socio-economic and political struggle of the Zimbabwean people. Now, back to chapter 2 that we are discussing today. I sometimes reflect that probably I was never meant to enjoy the fruits of independence, the fruits of tranquility, because at a very young age, and I think as you have rightly summarized it, in 1975, I found myself and my parents being thrown into these protective camps in at Mukumbura border post there. And even the ABC of Australia, one journalist by the name of Wright, when he visited the Mukumbura border post, the so-called protected camps, the Smith regime wanted the people to believe that they're being protected by the Smith regime against the guerrillas. But the fact of the matter is that we were being used as human shield against the warring parties. So it became, the pawn or the cannon fodder of the raging war. So at a very young age, about 4 years, I find myself in these protected camps, and I was locked up in there for the next 6 years until 1980. And all what we would see was raging wars, ricocheting bullets, and as I've said, in terms of growing up like any other child, playing soccer, again fighting, which is typical of rural boys those times. But then again, the whole episode of the 6 years,
Tendai and Tapiwa.
The whole episode of the 6 years, I look at it and reflect as years that I was denied my youth, that I was denied my dignity as a human being. And it toughened me. And it's such. And I think if you look at the chapter 2, at the end, I define myself as a person of defiance, that since my incarceration for 6 years in these barbed wire protective camps, it became a journey that today I'm still walking, and every day is a flip of pages of misery. And from 1980 again, then started school, and in a space of about 2 years, I went to 4 primary schools because of the war. So we were being moved from one school to another because sometimes it was not safe for the children to continue going to school that way. And again, when I finished, one of the incidents which is still vivid in my mind was after 1980, we went back to Nyakatondo, which was our previous village before the war. And yes, there was this makeshift school made of poi and dagger, no chairs, no tables. It was a horrendous time. Immediately after the war.
What year was 1980?
We are now talking of 1988. Yeah, we are talking about 1980 now.
And from the pictures I've seen on social media, such schools still exist?
Oh yes. You'll be surprised that now, 37 years after independence, we still have those schools in Zimbabwe, and it's very unfortunate. In this 21st century, you would think after 37 years, you would have put the necessary infrastructure to develop those schools. But unfortunately, this is the Robert Mugabe and ZANU-PF government.
So, I mean, after living 6 years in the KIPS, you move into a town Group A school in Harare, and you begin to experience, was it the same kind, I mean, did that remind you the racial discrimination that you were experiencing? Did that remind you of the KIPS?
It did. I think you find whatever, we talk about a lived experience, and whatever experience you go through, it becomes part and parcel of you. And whatever decisions you make in life, it's a reflexivity of what you've gone through. So yes, after finishing my primary school, I went to Mavradona boarding school. At Mavradona boarding school, again, the school was still in a dilapidated state after the war. And you'll be surprised that the age group of people going to Form 1 those years could be 35 years old. Somebody going to Form 1. So
I remember in the book you mentioned that some of them used to smoke in the classroom.
Indeed, yes.
I
mean, the behavior was horrendous. You can imagine, here I was a small boy, and then it's thrown in this class of war veterans.
War vets in the same class. Hello, Gladson on Facebook.
Indeed. It was, to me, it didn't bother me. The only problem it did a bit bothered me is their destructive behavior when I wanted to learn.
Yeah.
And they were not, most of them, they were not interested in learning. It was like they were being forced to go back to school.
But you say those who wanted to learn, they protected you because they wanted to copy your homework.
Indeed, yes. Yeah. So we survived harmoniously with our brothers and sisters who had just left who had just came from war. So it was a trend in rural schools those years. But after Mavradona Secondary School, I then went to Glenora High in Harare, where I became the president of Magazine Club.
Yeah.
And
before you continue there, can I just say to my Facebook, those that have just joined, I'm talking to Elliot Pfebve. We are discussing his book, Zimbabwe, My Home, My Frustration. It's available on Amazon. But we are not here to sell the book. We are here to talk about the thought process that went through his head when he was his mind when he was writing the book. So we've discussed a number of issues, and now he's just going to talk about his experience as a student in Form 1. Was it Form 1 you started there?
Form 1 was Mavradona Secondary School. In Harare, it was now Form 3.
Okay, so in Form 3 in Harare, that's when he experienced a bit of the racial discrimination, because there were still white students there. There were white members of staff. Apparently, the caning was more towards the black students than towards the white students. They used to be able to walk in straight, but the black students were stopped by the gate. And the funny thing is, they were disciplined by a black teacher. So he's just going to talk about that experience as he started going to school in the town in Harare.
Yes, so
Can I just say also that if you have any question you want to ask him, if you put it in the comments, then I can tell Elliot what the question is, that maybe he can address it. And maybe the same with your viewers because you're also live on Facebook.
Yes. So yes, I was at the Glenora High Secondary School, and I was the president of Magazine Club. And the first thing that I did was I was writing articles. So little did I know that one day I'll be writing books. But I enjoyed writing. I enjoyed researching as well. But again, it wasn't long before I was in trouble with the authorities when I authored an article about teachers abusing students, young girls. including concrete examples of students as young as 14 years old impregnated by teachers. And the headmaster wasn't happy with that. So I was called by the headmaster and I was fired for authoring such an article without authority from the headmaster.
You mean you were expelled from the school? Or fired from your position as...
I was fired from my position as president of the magazine club, and subsequently I was expelled from school.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, the title Zimbabwe, My Home, My Frustration, Articles of Defiance, although here the theme is about the politics, but not necessarily only the politics of MDC versus ZANU-PF or the political landscape of Zimbabwe, but also the social aspect. So it seems to me, even at that young age, I was always defiant, and I'd actually repositioned myself as a social democrat. And yes, there I was fired from my position, I was expelled from school.
Okay.
And the next thing is, and of course, every parent wouldn't be happy. And again, my parents were not happy with that, and they thought I was a bit too political for my age.
Yeah.
So I needed to concentrate on education first, and then politics later. But to me, I've always believed that you cannot separate politics from reasoning.
Yeah. And
as such, it has been part and parcel of me. To fight for my rights, and not necessarily my rights, but to fight for other people's rights. So then I appealed to.
I think if you tell the whole story, then people won't buy the book. So why don't you move on to maybe talk about the civic group, the Who's campaign against apartheid in South Africa? Because that ties up with your...
Yes. So, again, just in summary, I did appeal. And by then, the Minister of Education was Zingai Mtumbuka. And then I was reinstated.
Zingai was my neighbor at Kumushao.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, yes, I was reinstated. And you could expect then I became a hero at the school for unearthing such malpractices. But then after that, I moved to Allen Wilson for my A levels. This was Group A schools. That's where racial discrimination was rife. I fought racial discrimination in that school. And I was expelled again for the second time. I then appealed again to the Minister of Education, and Minister of Education, again, Zingai Mtumbuka, intervened. And then I was reinstated. But even during that time, when I was doing my A-level at Allen Wilson and became the president of the Student Union, I became so much involved against the war in South Africa, against apartheid. I was the secretary, the student secretary general for Heal the Wounds campaign. And James Mardad was actually the public relations officer for that organization, Heal the Wounds campaign.
Okay.
So I used to give speeches to gatherings, meetings, forums in South Africa, articulating and demanding the release of Nelson Mandela.
Okay, I think people will read all about that in the book. I'm cutting you short because I know you can talk even and finish the whole book. Then people don't have to buy. Talk about the drought. Talk about the drought.
Yes.
Let's move on.
So yes, the civic activism, I've been there, and then eventually there was this decapitating drought of 1992, 1991-92. Which disseminated the agriculture production throughout the country. And the government of Robert Mugabe, ZANU-PF, that time. Corruption had already crept in, and they were unable to alleviate the sufferings of the people throughout the country.
Hello, Evelyn, mi hermana.
So yes, and I sort of thought and evaluated and analyzed the response of the government in response to the drought, and I thought they could have done it better.
Mm-hmm.
But here it was the government that was entrenched in corruption and not necessarily responding to the needs of the majority of the people.
Yeah.
So I decided then to join politics and have my voice heard.
Okay,
Now,
talk to me about the primary school teacher who asked you what you want to become when you grow up.
Indeed, I was asked it, I think it was I was in grade 6, a very young boy. And as usual in primary school, people would be, you'll be asked by the teacher, one after the other, what you want to become when you grow up. And some were saying they wanted to be teachers, some they wanted to be nurses, some they wanted to be doctors. And I said, I want to be a politician. And they just laughed. I suppose the irony of it is that people didn't know what a politician was.
Yeah.
Because I'm talking about, small kids. But I think I was hardened by the war because I grew up during the Liberation War. And I was a bit analytic at a very young age.
Do you think now they know what a politician is? They think it's just a guy who drives a good car and wears a nice suit and has a big tummy.
I think it's worse now than it was then, because politics has actually lost relevance in Zimbabwe because of corruption. It is like a means to an end.
So what did the drought bring about? How this defiance in you? How was it triggered by the drought?
Yeah, it was triggered by the drought in the sense that I saw people suffering. It was on the newspapers and sometimes even on TVs. People suffering, and the government's response was not as expected. They didn't have an idea of how to respond to the drought, and they were busy amassing wealth amongst themselves through corruption tendencies. So I thought, hang on, people need to stand up against this government, against this regime, this corrupt regime. Okay. So yes, I traveled and then also addressed people in rural areas, telling them that.
Okay, before you talk about that, does that tie in with your brief stint at Zanondonga and then MDC? Maybe if you can.
Yeah, indeed.
You've got two minutes to talk about that.
Yeah. At the age of 19, I was the provincial chairman.
Yeah.
Of Zanondonga. The only reason why I parted ways, I was there for a short stint. But the policies, when the Bading Stole came to Zimbabwe and then promised people that he was going to give 600 acres to every Zimbabwean, and then $300 to every unemployed person. Those policies, okay, he was coming from the US. I could understand that he was trying to copy and paste. But that was irrelevant as far as the cultural and the capacity of Zimbabwe was concerned. And I tried to talk to Nabaling Stone to say, look, I think you shouldn't have announced those policies at the airport. You should have, first of all, done your research once you're in the country and get to see what really the people want and try to address those policies must be aligned with the cultural and the needs of the people. I think that's where I differed with the Nabaling Stone. But anyway, from there, in 1999, when MDC was formed, that became the starting point of my grander purpose in terms of politics. I met Morgan Tsvangirai well before MDC was formed at Leicester House in Harare, and during that time it wasn't a political party but a pressure group. So initially MDC was not formed as a political party but as a pressure group. So yes, I was part and parcel of the people who founded MDC as a pressure group. Firstly, it was to pressurize the government to address the needs of the people, be it economic, unemployment, and so forth. But the government it wasn't prepared to listen, as to be expected of Robert Mugabe and ZANU-PF. And the next thing is Mugabe declared that he knew that we were hiding behind our fingers as a pressure group. And he said, if you want to join politics, then join politics, and we meet at the ballot box. So eventually, there were a series of meetings.
Yeah,
and then people said, if Mugabe's challenged us.
I'm going to cut you off now. And I'm going to cut you off now so that people can, at least, I think people now have some idea of what the book is about. We've been talking about chapter 2. Elliot has gone through. We're going to post this video on YouTube so you can listen to it, and also the book. I've got one. Elliot has got some physical copies. If you are in the UK, if you contact him in his inbox on Facebook, I'm sure you can arrange to send you one. Where else can people find your book, Elliot?
They can find the book. It's on Amazon, amazon.co.uk or amazon.com. So whether you are in the USA or in Africa, in Europe or Australia, you can buy it online.
Thank you.
There are selected bookshops. If people can Google them throughout the world, so it's also available in South Africa as well.
Is it also available as an ebook, downloadable on Amazon, or is just physical?
Yes, there is an ebook as well on Amazon.
Great. So we've looked at chapter 2. Next week we're going to look at chapter 3 and go through again, find out from the author the thought process that went through, because I think from these conversations we probably get maybe a different perspective from the book itself. But read the book and enjoy your reading. Okay, thank you, Elliot. We're going to stop now.
Thank you, viewers. Join us next week, same time. We'll be evaluating and analyzing chapter 3 of Zimbabwe, My Home, My Frustration, with a view to take audit of where we have come from and where we are and where we are going as a people, reflected through the lens of the author. Thank you, and good night.
Good night. And chapter 3 will be about the rise and rise of the MDC.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm stopping now my Facebook Live. Thank you for viewing. We've finished with the conversation, but I'm going to post this video on YouTube. Okay, I'm going to download it from Facebook and then upload it to YouTube so that it's available whenever you need to listen to it again. Thank you very much.